is going to potentially be that third ban here for JDG. Not something that they're looking to first pick, and Jwei made a name for himself in Split 2 on this champion very early on.
As we continue to go throughout here, just in terms of different priorities for certain players here, obviously stuff like the Kai'Sa for JiaQi is always going to be important, but my eyes actually turn now to the Sejuani and the Yone that FPX have been able to whip out on multiple occasions to find wins in certain series. They got a win on it against Weibo. They got a win on it against AL. I know Milky Way generally is considered the big AD champion that can go, player that can go in on the Graves and the Xin Zhaos and the Viegos, but I feel like the Sejuani Yone is going to be a pretty big priority for them, and you're even kind of looking towards that now with the Trundle being banned away from them in this first phase.
Varus makes it through, so that's probably going to be the champion alongside the Yunara ban being taken away. Kind of showing that JDG prefer to play with the Varus. Obviously, that range is going to be very, very impactful. What top lane champion are we going to pick here for Sheer? Because in terms of matchups between our two top laners, I feel like this is a very advantageous side here for FPX. Sheer is a player who really likes to play with a little bit more agency in his lanes, likes to play those lane bullies. Champions are going to scale as they get into longer lanes. And Xiaoxu has, so far to me, shown that he is much better at playing the tanks, the things that are going to require less resources and less attention from the rest of his team and show up in team fights.
So it'll be a rumble early on for Sheer. We'll see if he's going to be able to use that champion to generate that advantage that you are saying that maybe FPX have the edge in terms of the matchup player-wise. It's going to be a Jhin to follow things up here, going down towards JiaQi. I feel like in general, like when JiaQi's on something that has a little bit more damage, but we'll see how he does on a more utility pick in the Jhin.
Talking about range, right? You have a Rumble, the Equalizer, alongside the Deadly Flourish. You can pick out members at range, maybe at a certain amount where JDG are not allowed to interact with you. But from right now, what JDG are showing is strong mid-jungle for themselves. And especially with this Varus, as long as it is poke Varus, I do like their chances for JDG as to being able to play from range and poke out their opponents. So we already got some strong engage here for Jwei, something that is not the case here for JDG.
It's not yet. We'll see what Jwei does want to lock in. It very much prioritizes, picks that can go for some hard engage. If I'm FPX, I'm banning away something like a Nautilus, maybe an Alistar here. Make sure that, Jwei is unable to get something that he feels pretty comfortable on and fulfill a need in this JDG composition. We head into that second phase of pick and ban, leaving FPX's mid-jungle, Milky Way and Care, that original duo from 2024, to figure out what they want to play in the back half of this draft.
You're going to be playing into a Taliyah and a Xin Zhao, so honestly, if you want to try to play the lane, Aurora can be very good here, and then you're setting up for potentially a Wukong later on. You still also have Kindred, which wouldn't be too spicy in this game, but giving yourself the ability to peel off of a Xin Zhao or a Taliyah could be very nice. And for JDG, in terms of what you're getting from your bottom lane, an Alistar could be good here. I think that getting the Leona or the Rakan to play very flexibly with your front line is more and more what we could be going towards.
There's that Yone that we were potentially alluding to. Xiaoxu going to get the Ornn targeted. This is a pick that generally is a response into the Rumble for a little bit more of a safer choice. Something like a Scion still available for Xiaoxu if JDG want to go that direction as we enter this second phase of pick ban. FPX probably needed some damage out of either the jungler role or the mid lane role, just given the fact that the Jhin is not going to be doing a ton of constant DPS. If you want some setup though, Jarvan definitely does speak that, has some good synergy with the Rumble and the Equalizer.
There's also just a mobile carries here from JDG. The Taliyah and this Varus are going to be very difficult to get away from if you are this Jarvan. So maybe trying to just find some dive you set up with that Equalizer like you were noting. There's the Rakan to pair with Xin Zhao. So a front to back here is exactly what JDG wants. And honestly, groups, I feel like FPX are giving them that. You're going to be a Taliyah who can set up versus a Rel and a Jarvan. This feels very, very good for them. And what we need to see from FPX is things we haven't seen from them all split long, which is great coordination, creative setups around objectives, and honestly, some pound for pound strong laning from them.
Do like JDG's composition. Think it is very, very well balanced. We'll see what Care has to answer against Scout's Talia. It's going to be an Akali locked in. So I think in general, there's not a ton of like DPS on FPX's composition. They're going to be looking for picks. They're going to be looking for catching members out in side lanes to find success for their unit in this first game.
The early game here is very important here for FPX because eventually Xiaoxu is going to be a problem in this game. He will be a Sion versus an Akali, a Jhin, a Rumble. There is no fun to be had here from the side of FPX. So Care needs to pop off. We need to see this Milky Way and Care duo activate the game early, find Scout multiple times in mid lane. We've seen that be a recipe success in other series. Can they make it happen, though, is going to be another instance. And then Rakan makes the game a lot harder when you have the Grand Entrance, the swiftness as well.
Yeah, and a lot of pressure is going to be on Jwei, on his Rakan, to be that primary initiator. The new player on JDG's side as they try to find new methods, new ways, new abilities to find wins here in the LPL for 2025 Split 3. Obviously, we've seen BLG and some other teams have some success with some mid-season roster changes throughout the year. JDG are hoping they can tap into a little bit of that magic, bringing in somebody like Jwei, as they need it if they want to try to get themselves in a good spot to clinch an international spot to get back to Worlds for the first time since 2023.
Yeah, Grapes, your aspirations are high. Let's get JDG into playoffs first. Let's get them in there first.
Scout and Peyz, they surely should be contending for Worlds. No, but like
they were supposed to be a super team at the start of the year, but everything so far has shown that they peaked in Split 1, and now here in Beijing, they'll have to make the impossible happen and make the climb into playoffs.
And it looks like there's not a ton of excitement here for Game 1 just yet. We got some time, potentially, for the series to marinate a little bit. We are in Beijing, of course, JDG's home arena. Maybe they're just feeling it out. They don't want to know who they're rooting for just yet until they see what Jwei looks like on the team.
They're bandwagoners? We've got bandwagoners in Beijing? Nice,
yeah,
bro.
Maybe. I don't know.
I flamed the last time we were watching a JDG series that I thought the crowd might. Whoever's the engineer, we gotta fix it. It's not been great. I heard some gyos, but they were very, very soft. So, like you were saying, probably the fans are going to be tuning in at least for Game 2, and then we'll see what happens there. But pretty tough early lane here for JiaQi and Jwei. If they're not able to land some of their spells, then it's very free for Peyz and Jwei to make sure that they can put damage down. And it is going to be that poke variant to the Varus.
And Jwei getting targeted to start off his JDG career, chunked down to 100 HP with the Ignite, traded for the heal. And so already the FPX bot lane getting off to a good start.
And, Jwei. Okay, 4th shot plus bouncing grenade. Fair enough. JiaQi has no damage here. Peyz is going to have the wave bouncing towards him. What I was going to say is that both junglers are pathing bot right now. We have not seen Milky Way do much early, but he was spotted on his Raptors. I wonder if he's going to make a wraparound play, and a single ward here from Scout is going to make it very difficult for this Jarvan to walk into mid.
Yeah, just having not a ton of ability to do much in terms of gank assist for the Akali as well, especially against this Talia, until you get a little bit later on into the game. Going to hurt FPX's chances over there. Jwei trying to go for something here, does not realize that that bush is warded. So Scout gonna take that base, head right back for a reset. I will say we talked about a lot of the different roles here in this matchup between these two teams. I think the mid lane also is gonna be important. I feel like in general, Scout and Care, players that we have wanted to see more of this season that have not been able to fully deliver on what was on the promises.
Well, for Care, it feels like he's been the franchise player for this team, but hasn't necessarily been the guy that is going to carry them in a lot of instances. We've gotten some of those performances, but not nearly consistently enough for a player who has been on this roster and in this organization for his entire time in the LPL as a pro player. So Want to see a little bit more out of him, and for Scout, it's the pedigree, it's the resume there that makes it very difficult. We saw early recalls here from JiaQi, but Peyz has yet to go back to base. Expect that after he clears out this wave, they're going to be looking for a move.
Heavy trading here as Peyz and Jwei just trying as hard as they can to get this wave shoved in so they can go for a reset of their own. Have a little bit of extra support knowing that Shun has cleared out that bottom side river. There is no chance of a gank there for them. And so Peyz will be able to head back to base, but overall, FPX doing a good job in terms of this bottom lane 2v2 to set up JiaQi and Jwei for success.
Both teams have an idea as to where the enemy jungler are. You saw the pinks come out. They're like, okay, Jarvan's probably on the top side. Could end up looking for something on top lane, so we have to be a little bit careful there. And the enemy team from FPX are saying, look, Shun's going to be on the top side of the map. So for who this advantages, I will say it's a pretty good start here for JDG with all the lanes being even, and in particular the fact that as the game goes on, it's going to be a little tough for FPX. The fact that they haven't gotten anything really meaningful so far in the first few minutes is a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, JDG's scaling just works pretty well when you have this Scion specifically here for Xiaoxu. You mentioned that not a ton of tank killing on the FPX side of things for their composition. So if Xiaoxu is able to get to that point, it will become a very important part of how JDG do want to operate here. A little bit of trading here in the mid lane. Scout getting procced on that electrocute as Care finds a nice little chunk of damage, and now towards the bot lane we go. Peyz getting targeted immediately by a nice flash engage by Jwei, and Milky Way dashes in with the flag and drag to pick up first blood.
Good start here. He skipped a few camps. It's going to be the Dragon started as well here for FPX as they close out on this bottom lane. Good punish. That's a very good start there for FPX, as, I mean, so far this 2v2 has been very, very good for JiaQi and Jwei going forward. So let's see if they can even squeeze for another turret play. If not, it's just going to be half a wave missed here by Peyz, including that kill.
Yeah, so the bot lane for FPX thought that maybe they would have a decent time going up against a 2v2 that is playing together for the first time in official match play. So far, that has proven to be correct, as Jwei finding a very nice crash down engage onto both Peyz and Jwei and taking down the Varus. I feel like in general, it's hard to be a top performing support player on a team that is struggling and a team that constantly is falling behind. But Jwei, remember, was an all-pro, or was in all-pro consideration last split at the very least, and we can see why with plays like this.
Yeah, it just really fantastic job. Flash Q gets it, and then after that it is just light work for FPX. Milky Way being very cheeky and stealing that. Don't think that's necessary, but that's okay. And what we're going to continue to see in this game is whether or not the lanes of FPX can continue to apply pressure, because as is right now, when we start to break away from having the bottom laners sit in this lane and they're moved into mid lane, Scout needs to be very careful about when and where he shows up. This Akali is going to be able to solo kill him in a lot of instances pre like 15-20 minutes. So more on Care to see whether or not he can push his advantage in the matchup.
Yeah, it's a very easy split in terms of where each composition is strongest. JDG best in the 5v5s once we get later on to the game. FPX need to find picks in side lane, specifically with Care on the Akali, with JiaQi issuing some long-range support. And they found the first one down there in that 2v2 down bottom, but still a lot of work to be done in that department.
And imagine, just like we saw in the NIP series where we're talking about Vi playing in side lanes, Jarvan can do that too. Jarvan can walk up with the Akali, find a pocket of vision that Scout isn't necessarily looking towards or doesn't have vision on, and that can end up being an advantage for them. But we have Grub spawning in 10. I am going to assume with Scout having his teleport in advantage over Care, at least with 30 seconds on it, and has the ultimate, we should see JDG look to start moving their members in towards this objective. They're going to be a team that I think really wants to stop the Akali, and they have much better range to be actually able to hit these turrets and utilize this objective.
Milky Way gonna be able to get to the river first. Shun not landing that wind becomes light for a little extra chunk damage. Jwei also teleporting in with that Summoner Spellbook. Not at level 6 just yet though, and that could be crucial as we get the grub started up by both of these teams. Jwei using the Hex Flash, not finding an engage just yet. First grub secured by Milky Way, but now Carrot the flash away. Unstoppable onslaught into the pit. And it now means that JDG control the area. Decimating Smash lands just onto the Jarvan, but now he's looking to go in, find a Cataclysm onto somebody, but he's not going to be able to use it. Peyz will take him down, using that Chain of Corruption to make sure that ulti could not be used. And now JiaQi looking for as much as he can with the curtain call, but overall JDG going to control those grubs and get a 2-for-1 edge.
I don't know what Milky Way was looking for there. The rest of his team wasn't really in position, and it's a tough fight there, especially for the fact that FPX, they have a lot of tools to be able to find 1 or 2 members. How do we not see Sheer and Milky Way work together with the Cataclysm and the Equalizer? Let's take a look back at this replay. This is a great flank here for FPX. They have Sheer pincering on one side, Milky Way's already in the pit, but Kara has to use his Shuriken flip. From here on out, we need to be seeing the engage. Trap them in the entrance here. We're waiting for our Jin to get into the spot, but Electrocute plus perfect execution should be enough with an Equalizer to find 2 kills at the very least.
Yeah, it felt like if they just maybe pressed that go button a little bit earlier, maybe Milky Way would have been able to get his ultimate off, but just that extra hesitation that was not necessarily the case when we saw Kara and Milky Way play together on FPX a little over a year ago, where the decisiveness was always there. Milky Way was never afraid to go for these plays, and that's been the difference with the FPX Milky Way we've been seeing this season compared to last.
By the way, I just want to mention, JDG had a game on the 9th, so 2 days ago. They announced Jwei yesterday. He's playing his first game. The time span and the amount of time to practice has not been very much here for JDG with their new support. And while support can have an impact on comms, we might see a much slower Jindong, who already were a notoriously not very active team in the early game, especially because of some of the woes that they have, and I think particularly the kind of player archetypes that they have on their team.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what LNG did all season long when Jwei was there, which was just drag games on to 30-40 minutes and then either hope that they're in a position to flip a team fight or just eventually lose the game.
Lose in peace.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not what the vibe Jwei was bringing to JDG, because it was never a great strategy on his team that he was spanning last split. But so far it has been a quieter first 11 minutes to this one, as FPX do find their way towards the second dragon. They should be able to collect it with Shun heading back to base.
Xiaoxu also putting himself on the top side of the map with these 2 grubs, gonna get himself a plate. He is only 2 CS behind in this matchup at 11 minutes. I mean, this is not an easy matchup for Rumble to play anyway, but speaks, I think, more to the fact that JDG will have that eventuality in terms of the tank stats, and FPX have not made too many meaningful upgrades here in this early game. They found the early kill onto Peyz. They failed and flubbed at a Herald fight. Grabbing themselves the first 2 dragons of the game is a good way to keep yourself in this, and it's going to be an Ocean Soul, so dragging out fights versus Sion may not be perfect, but gives a champion like Jin perfect time to really take his DPS to the next level.
Really, the bigger thing is you don't make sure that JDG don't get the soul for the Sion and the Xin Zhao, right? That just makes fights even more unplayable. But for FPX, the goal was to try to find picks using their side laners. They have not been able to do that just yet. Although, as I say that, Scout has fallen victim to overstaying on waves this season and even splits past this year. We'll see if that happens yet again with Milky Way and Care both on the horizon, but nicely done by Scout, knowing that things could be a little bit risky, so backing away.
Ooh, Jarvan just got spotted thanks to Jwei popping the Scryer's Bloom. Will be spotted here. Milky Way trying to clear out some vision. It's not much for JDG to contest right now. They're going to lose a large portion of this, so Scout has to be careful if Jwei is going to be staying in mid lane. Could be a repeat offender going towards top side.
Little poke here. It's actually Jwei. Where are we going? The rest of the team not nearly close enough, as the new support for JDG has to burn both summoner spells and his ultimate for just face checking a bush.
And he just had Xiaoxu teleport. They're gonna have to swap here. Scout is gonna have to move towards bottom side. Sheer's gonna. I want to look towards bottom lane. They can do observers. There's gonna be at least a plate going over to the Rumble. I'm glad that Xiaoxu was watching to see if there's gonna be a play, but that is a very costly mistake from the new support.
And we'll see if it provides any impact. That's going to be no flash on your Rakan, who is a big primary engage for JDG's team. For the Rift Herald that's spawning in a minute and 30, and for the Dragon that is spawning in 3 minutes time. That could be the difference between FPX picking up a soul point or not, having JDG get themselves back into the objective department. So thankfully for Jwei and JDG, does not result in death, does not result in any extra gold going over, but you have to wonder what made him go so aggressive here for just like a face check and potential to place a ward down.
Thunder Sky Jarvan. This guy can't kill me, right? There's no way!
He got close. He got pretty close.
Yeah, it's going to be Herald spawning in a minute's time. And I still advantage JDG here in these spots. There'll be TPs for both of our mid laners. More importantly, Kara hitting that level 11 and teleporting into the fight could be a game changer. Especially for the fact that some of the item spikes are not as impactful here for JDG early on.
Right now, FPX, I feel like in general they'd want to be in a situation where they're a little bit further ahead, just given the way their composition likes to function, but the 5v5's not unplayable just yet, although Xiaoxu is starting to get pretty beefy. Care in the side lane, just eating a chunk of damage from Scout, and not been able to find too much. Care is going to have to be very impactful in some of these big 5v5s or some of these big fights that break out. Trying to one-shot either a Scout or Peyz, one of these immobile backline carries.
They need to escort Jwei into this river right now. It's going to be Milky Way and him walking into the bottom side closest to mid. But look at how easy it is. When you're playing this Varus versus the Jhin, it is way simpler for you to clear out all of the minion waves. And so Jhin has to take a little bit of time. Thankfully, he has the range with the Deadly Flourish to interact. But look at the vision. They have very few wards placed here. And a single one inside of the pit. And it should be JDG who gets to start this one up, and up to FPX to make a creative find here in this team fight.
That's what their composition wants to do, right? You throw the equalizer on top of the Cataclysm, find a singular member, have Care, find a flank. That has to be what FPX look for, not just fight things out fully front to back. Creativity here for FPX is important, but JDG don't want to start this Herald just yet.
We have hit those level 11 marks for our mid laners. Care as well as Scout are going to be looking for recalls and teleporting into this fight. Wonder where they move first. Are they going to move immediately down into the bottom side? Scout is going to not even play chicken. He's going to take over mid alongside Peyz and make it so that they have control of the mid wave, while Care just hoofs it on over.
Yeah, he's running as fast as he can, but that could give JDG enough time to start up this Herald. Now the teleport comes in and gives Care a good opportunity to flank. But the rest of FPX have not pressed the go button just yet, as JDG have done a nice job stacking up the 5-man unit to make sure that nobody can get singled out by the pick comp of FPX.
Well, now FPX, they get a wave in mid lane, or they get the wave in top side. They get to push bottom lane wave as well. This is golden experience being missed out by JDG. You can see how long. If this resets again, FPX are in a massive advantage state here.
Jwei has his flash, has the Magnet Storm, looking for something, but Care gets caught out on the flank. Chain of Corruption comes down, and the Akali, it might just fall before she can even do any damage. Xiaoxu picks him up with the choo-choo train, and now Scout coming in with the Weaver's Wall, forcing Sheer to flash on out. A crucial mistake by the FPX mid laner will give JD Gaming the opportunity to secure the Herald.
Finally, a spot for them to finish this objective. More mid plates going down, and more importantly for me, jungle camps going away. A third Dragon. FPX are going to be on the sole point at 17.5 minutes. This is exactly the kind of early game that they needed. Yes, there's been some hiccups here. Sheer should be able to live. Equalizer comes down. That's the wave gone. And this is good. This is still great here for FPX.
And so maybe, just maybe, Care dying was not in vain, as it will be soul point secured here by Milky Way. In response, of course, the Herald taken by Shun. Of course, the one kill going over. But FPX, they can secure that soul, would be big. But Care, I feel like you could have got a lot of it without just not getting caught out by this.
Excellent analysis coming out from Graves. Do not die. This is good stuff to think about when you're playing any of your games, whether you are playing in competitive or solo queue at home. But yeah, I just
do what he did. Do a sheer, good flash, man.
Yeah, just flash. Sure, that could be the case, right? Like, you could just flash out of that one, and Care still loses a summoner spell and goes down. But all in all, this is I think an even trade here. Now, what can JDG do? They have 2 grubs. and they have a Herald. So any of these turrets could fall. Are they going to look to try to prioritize Scout's lane? I don't think it's as important right now. I think what you're looking for is to break open mid and make it difficult for FPX to more meaningfully walk around the map.
Ooh, Jwei going for the quickness, finding two members with the charm and forcing JiaQi to flash away, but now Jwei's gonna get caught out as well. Another chain of corruption comes through from Peyz, and he'll snipe him down with the empowered arrow. Making it 3-for-1, that's Feats of Warfare, going over to a JD Gaming and giving themselves the Feats of Strength.
Yeah, but like, why are we teleporting? I know I'm like nitpicking now for JDG, but that teleport from Xiaoxu feels very over complicated. We did not need to be using these summoner spells. You've given Akali a lane now. She's not gonna be able to take the turret thanks to Scout arriving, but maybe you're allowed to use the ultimate from Xiaoxu to move around the map a little bit more freely. So your teleport isn't as important, but Xiaoxu doesn't even get anything for that. He just teleported topside, lost a wave, and it's kind of meaningless. You're now going to have a TP advantage here available for this Rumble.
Thing is, somehow JDG still end up benefiting from it. All things considered, it's not a full tower able to be taken by Kara on the bottom side. Instead, going to be that first tower in the mid lane taken by JDG, as well as that kill, getting Peyz to a very powerful status at this point. Just a couple of spells away from fully upgrading that Muramana and already working on that third completed item at just the 20-minute mark.
All right, 2.5 minutes before the next dragon. That would be Soul for FPX if they can have it. I need to see JDG force onto this Otacon. Maybe with a Herald in mid, they can try to force onto this turret and move forward. This will cause multiple members of FPX to move towards this map. You see them making their way towards topside. Xiaoxu just pushed a top lane wave in, and Scout needs to be careful. He cannot overextend on the bottom lane wave as he has to prep this teleport.
Otacon is being started here by JD Gaming, but Jwei getting caught up by Milky Way a little bit. It forces JDG off the objective for now, but Milky Way now gets charmed up by the quickness, forcing Milky Way to flash away. And Jwei will be able to get out alive after another very aggressive posture.
All right, tend to our lanes, walk back forward into either the jungle and steal some camps, or let's try to see if we can get position onto the Otacon. Milky Way is making his way over. There's a teleport from Scout. Care is going to walk and see if they can flank onto Peyz through mid lane. Let's see if they can make this engagement. Peyz still has flash.
Milky Way looking for something. The Deadly Flourish lands on to Shun, but now the Unstoppable Onslaught comes through. Milky Way once again going to die without issuing that Cataclysm. And a crucial death onto the FPX jungler will give JDG free reign to start up the Otacon once again.
But FPX, they can stall this out, and remember, a minute before the Soul, even if JDG get the Otacon, if this takes too long or they get reset on it, that could be very dangerous and a massive problem for JDG to deal with. But instead, FPX, I don't know why they're not just pushing forward. It's going to take them a long time to finish this Otacon. This should have been them moving forward with JiaQi and the curtain call, using the equalizer to push JDG off. And instead, they barely get any damage on a mid lane turret.
Yes, it's very difficult to do anything given what Xiaoxu and Peyz were able to do to box out FPX now that Milky Way has gone down. Another instance of indecisiveness here off Milky Way, just not pressing the JiaQi.
He's not in range at that point. The versus Peyz, and Peyz still has flash, so it's really difficult. This is a team composition where you need to have everybody in position. Rumble was not even nearby, and you would have gotten a curtain call, yes, but guess what? Jwei was in the area. He would have been able to block at least some of them with the quickness. So I think a lot of mistakes coming on through. It's Jwei finding Milky Way and Jwei, and now Dragon spawns in 10. Care needs to get a teleport in, and this needs to be the fight for FPX that breaks the game for them.
Yeah, because the scaling from JDG really starting to come online as we see Xiaoxu approaching 1,000 soul furnace stacks, already at 2 completed items, and not going to get any weaker as this game progresses. Care will get that tier 1 turret, and maybe FPX will feel comfortable giving up this dragon if it means finding some of their standing gold, but I feel like at this point they want the 5v5.
JDG already got their kills, they already got their turrets.
Corruption lands onto Jwei, but it's going to cost Jwei a lot of HP, maybe even his life. As Sheer flashes forward, the dragon gets secure, but it's a 1-for-1. Support for jungler in favor of JDG for now. Fully charged Q into the hands of JDG. And the equalizer does a lot of damage, but it's not going to be enough. A double kill picked up here for Xiaoxu, and FPX just dropped like flies as JD Gaming pick up 4 kills for the price of 1, and might be a 5th as JiaQi gets a huge seismic shove caught on top of him. Shun dashing forward and making it all 5.
There we go. A full-on ace, the Dragon to stop it, and they get the bottom lane tier 1. JDG just basically won off of the last 5 minutes of play. They got the Otacon, they took 2 turrets here as well. I don't know what else to say. We checked this replay. This teleport from Care is way too far away. Why is he not teleporting into the Tri-Brush to find this flank? By the time he gets to this fight, it is already over. Milky Way gets caught out, and all of this advantage just trying to go onto Jwei means nothing. Zion is way too tanky, and I just want to watch Care. I know it's a terrible time to put a spotlight on the mid, but it's a full, perfect execution over every single unraveled Earth Rock from Scout. So he comes out of the first cast of his ult, and is already almost dead.
Yeah, it just seems like another situation where FPX is not fully on the same page. Nobody knows when exactly the right point is to go in.
Jwei, what are we doing?
Milky Way has used his ult once until I say that and tries to find something onto Jwei. But it's not going to find anything else as he's able to dash away. Care actually nearly getting assassinated here. It just takes a lot of damage on the back end of things. FPX not in a good position to do much at this point.
How does Jwei get out of that, bro? That's plot armor right there. There's no reason that he gets to live that for positioning in that way, but I guess FPX are just too far behind. Not enough damage right now. Milky Way is trying to get to his Black Cleaver, but he's running out of camps to take as JDG take every single resource away from FPX, pushing on 2 separate waves, and with Baron spawning in a few, have to imagine that JDG are going to try to use this as a platform to try to end this game.
I mean, if you don't end it here, like off of this push, you can always turn back to the Baron, which is just spawned. And at this point, it should be pretty easy for JDG to start up on their own. Remember that they are the team that does excel in these 5v5s. Now that Xiaoxu is as tanky as he is, nobody on FPX has any chance of taking him down.
You say that, but look at his teammates, right? Shun has 3,000 HP because he has a Black Cleaver and a Sundered Sky. Scout is getting very close to that threshold, already with the Rylai's giving him a little bit more HP and the Seraph Shield there. Even this Edge of Night from Peyz makes it a little bit more difficult for FPX to find damage onto him. So the side lane plays that we wanted to see from FPX haven't really occurred. This matchup in top lane, Sheer is a player who really excels when lanes are really long and he can play by himself. His Rumble has not been impressive so far this split, so I don't know what else we're waiting for. Maybe JiaQi when he hits up an Infinity Edge, but by that point, the game's already over.
Yeah, I mean, staring at a 6,000 gold deficit, FPX just have to try to make a play happen right now. They'll try to do so again onto the new support of JDG, but he just takes up so much damage, and eventually will just force Jwei to go down here thanks to the piercing arrow. Now Xiaoxu can teleport in and utilize that unstoppable onslaught, and on the backside of things, not even Milky Way can do anything about it. Finally, the curtain call will help Peyz go down, but it'll cost FPX 3 members as JDG get all of the gold that they want and can start up this Baron for free.
Chat, I need to ask, why did it take us 26.5 minutes to see a Jarvan ult plus Equalizer combo? There was no reason for this to have waited so long. There were opportunities in the early game. They needed to have much better coordination here. If JiaQi steals this with a Deadly Flourish, then hooray, you stalled the game for 3 minutes. It's not even going to happen. Shun's going to get the smite there, and now they need to reset as Dragon is spawning in 50. We take a look at this replay. We've seen it. Jwei gets caught multiple times, but again, 26.5 minutes is the first time we get Cataclysm and Equalizer. Why?
Yeah, just not on the same page again, and this is the combo. Milky Way and Hair, the duo that was a part of FPX just a year ago. And, you know, Sheer kind of getting boxed out of the rest of the fight as well, only being able to utilize that Equalizer. Can't use any of his other portions of his kit really to get into that fight, and it allows for JDG to get themselves the Baron as well as a couple more kills. They can look to try to put the finishing touches on this game at this point in time. Milky Way getting targeted once again. Nice flag and drag to get on out of there earlier on.
Well, I have good news, everybody. JiaQi needs about 400 gold. So not this wave, not the next one, but the 3 waves from now, so about 2.5 minutes, he will have Infinity Edge. And we'll be very happy. Then we can start rejoicing. Even though I think the game is already kind of doomed at this point, with JDG not picking up their second Dragon of the game, and they still have Baron in front of the minute and a half. Maybe they find a pick here. I don't know. They're going to have to make a pretty disgusting base defense if they want any chance here.
Have to try to find something. Milky Way looking for the flag and drag, realizing, hey, Xiaoxu maybe not the target that I'm looking for at this point. The poke damage not doing anything, and now it's actually just going to be Sheer getting targeted instead. Flashes over the Weaver's wall, will be able to live while being overheated. But now FPX have to take a couple of resets, and that allows more time for JDG to break over the base.
Good luck trying to clear any of these waves. You're going to have a Talia, and you're going to have a Varus just aiming for you, gunning to try to take you down here. FPX lose their bottom lane inhibitor. No mid-wave to push on yet.
Oh. Milky Way gets taken down again. Flash Smite, or Cataclysm, everything available for him. But just the sure amount of crowd control on JDG is enough to take him down. Jwei's the next target. Already a 2-for-0 in the base of FPX. And it should be more very, very soon. Care goes down. Peyz gets himself kill number 6. And Sheer will hand him over a double kill to wrap up this game number 1. An absolute clinic from JDG in their new debut with their new roster, as FPX never stood a chance as JDG go up on the series 1-0.
This is what we saw from them in game number 1 of the last time FPX versus JDG occurred here in Split 3. A dominant game number 1 from everybody here on JDG. But I'll be honest here, Grapes. You could have put anybody on the opposite side from FPX. They looked disjointed. They looked unable to really coordinate the team fights that we wanted from them. And hell, we waited for an R5 Akali and got nothing from it.
And I don't want to do too much of the speculation or anything, but it feels like an FPX that is struggling, you know, both obviously on the Rift, but also in terms of the confidence levels that these players have in themselves and in their own team. Obviously, there was a lot of drama with the offseason in terms of, you know, how the roster ended up getting put together, but it really feels like this team is not on the same page. And even when you have a jungler like Milky Way, who is known for being very aggressive, going for big plays, it feels like even he is making decisions that is trying to help the team not lose instead of trying to help the team win. And that is never a recipe for success here in the LPL.
Even with Jwei having some weird positions and almost getting caught a few times, that was a much slower game that we needed to see FPX take control of. Honestly, I think the portion of the game that they lost, because even with them not getting the combo that we wanted to see, they had all 3 of the first dragons, right? 22 minutes rolls around. What happens? They are pushing into mid and giving over the Otacon instead of pushing them off the objective. I feel like kind of that maybe speaks to that confidence that you were just referencing. The fact that they don't feel like they could try to force, try to see if they can. They don't even have to actually contest the objective. They know they don't have smite. Just push them off of it. Make them burn a lot of time so you can move, retreat on your side of the map. Very simple in my mind.
Yeah, just weren't able to get it done. And after the first 10 minutes or so didn't go their way, when you look at the compositions on both sides, it's an FPX, you know, 5-man unit that needed to be ahead once we got to the mid game in order for them to have any chance to close out the game. Like, that is how the game plan goes. You continue to force fights, you continue to be aggressive. Once you fall behind, very difficult for FPX to accomplish anything, and they're gonna have to go back to the drawing board to find something that works for them going into game number 2. As we take a look at the full, you know, damage charts, the goal graph and everything. Normally in LPL, we talk about things going very lopsided. This was fully JDG controlled.
Care did almost as much damage as Rakan did. That is not the Akali I needed to see. I don't know why my Akali has 6,000 damage. That is kind of miserable. And you can kind of see the damage percentage shared, 12% for both Milky Way and Care. The duo that we highlighted going into this series, coming up missing here in game number 1.
Speaking of missing was not missing. Here it was Jwei coming in and picking up a win in his debut with JDG. Still have to finish off the series, but we saw some highs, saw some lows out of him, but none of the lows really ended up coming back to bite him, as new JDG looks pretty good.
The lows were on the other side of the rift. They were coming out of the red side nexus. Yeah, I don't know. There is a lot of champions that I think thematically don't very work well for JDG and the way they like to play. I know that you had said, like, hey, Jhin for JiaQi doesn't feel like it's the right champion, especially from what we've got from him in series past. I don't think Sheer is a very good Rumble player, at least from what we've got from him so far in 2025. And Milky Way showed that we are not playing Jarvan.
Yeah, it just continued to pain me to see how hesitant Milky Way was to go for some of these plays. And sure, you can say, hey, Ruler has, or Peyz has his flash, like, if I just ult him, he's going to just flash away. But just trying to force something instead of just sitting there and waiting to die would have been more impactful. The fact that we had to get to this moment here to, as you mentioned, see that equalizer Cataclysm combo showed that they weren't doing enough quick enough.
And part of that does come down to the support, right? Like, Jwei needs to be finding and creating angles with his teams, even if it is negative, right? Like, even if we had seen them drop kills early just so they can get summoner spells, that would have been more, in my mind, reasonable, and I would have been okay with saying, okay, look, FPX, they tried, they failed, but at least we got to see them do something in this game. The problem is that we didn't see them do very much for a large portion of this one, and maybe a little bit of inactivity is going to kill them here, but I don't know. Game 2, I need to see some kind of bounce back. I need to see, like, some way to maybe punish Jwei, because we've saw him caught out so many times in this game. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's basically exactly the Jwei that we saw on LNG, where he would go for some plays, he would flip the game a little bit sometimes, and would get caught out a lot. And we're seeing some of those patterns kind of come together for JDG. Thankfully for them, though, did not result in them getting punished whatsoever, as FPX took a bit of a beating to JD Gaming overall. They have now fallen down to 1-0 in the series, as JDG look to make sure that they are a team that can compete and can be in consideration for some of those international spots.
So, thinking about MVP, honestly, I don't know who we're giving MVP to. Peyz was pretty consistent, but again, there was not much to do. They lost the early laning phase in the 2v2. Scout didn't have a bad game, and maybe you could say that his Unraveled Earth made it very difficult for the opponents, which I would agree with.
Let's take a look. I actually really have no idea at this point. They gave it to Scout for exactly that reason, I would assume.
Yep. Didn't see too much, but it is on the Akali to make things happen when you're playing this Talia. So, didn't see that from Care, and Scout gets to pick up his 4th MVP of the split.
Yeah, you know, a player that's had some ups and downs in this split, to say the least, but played consistently, survived a little bit of pressure, and made sure that he was never caught out of position, like a lot of members of FPX ended up being throughout this game. As JDG up 1-0 now in this best-of-3 series over FunPlus Phoenix. They 2-0'd them in the first round of things. Will they be able to do it again to wrap up their matchup and wrap up their history in split number 3? We'll find out in just a few short minutes here on LPL English.